Thank you for coming this afternoon to learn about domestic violence and its relations to honor getting through these panelists. Debbie Schnitzer is a speaker and moderator of this event. She will speak on the social aspect of the topic also. Debbie is the domestic violence coordinator for the YWCA, of Tonawanda. Adjunct instructor of University at Buffalo, School of Social Work, and counselor at YWCA. Now, this information is also available if you Google it. But what you will not be able to find on Google is my experience of Debbie. In your life, you meet people who are honest, people who are trustworthy, and some who are compassionate, and there may be few who are spiritual and humble, and at the same time, vibrant. Well, it is my pleasure and my honor to present to you Debbie Schnitzer, who is all these things that I just mentioned. And need I say, the caring community of Buffalo needs to hear from her. Please welcome Debbie Schnitzer.
Thank you, Tamina. I don't know that I can live up to that. And talking about Tamina, the day I met her, I just knew that we had a connection that was beyond what normal connections are. And I don't know a woman who is so able to get things done and move and shake and make stuff happen like Tamina. So we so appreciate you in so many areas, Tamina. Thank you. As Tamina said, I am the domestic violence coordinator of the YWCA of the Tonawandas. I'm a licensed social worker, and I have 2 concentrations, which means kind of 2 master's degrees in social work, one in clinical work where I specialize in trauma and PTSD, and one in community organization where I specialized in policy development and policy analysis. So I have a really unique seat to see both ends and how policy and legislation affects the lives of people on the ground every day. And I'm very blessed to have a great seat to watch that happen. I also feel very blessed to see all of you here today because it's a beautiful day and you're spending your day with us, and I so appreciate it. That's a testimony to your care and your concern for the safety of women and for the well-being of families and children, and that encourages me that you care so much about our community. And I'll tell you, you're going to learn so much from these incredibly brilliant women. I am honored, and I'm a little out of my league to be standing up here with them, I'll tell you. They spend their careers, their energies, their talents working to further safety and well-being of women in the community at large. I learned tons from them. I'm sure you're going to as well. And we're here to talk about domestic violence and honor killing. Not too pleasant of a topic for a Sunday, sunny, wonderful afternoon, but it's important to talk about. Because you remember when we're little and we have those monsters in our closet that we don't want to ever mention, right? And they just keep getting bigger and bigger and stronger and scarier and scarier. That's what happens with domestic violence. That's what happens with honor killing. If we don't talk about it, it gets bigger and it gets scarier. So we're going to open that closet door, shine some light in there today, and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to learn about it so that peace and freedom and safety can grow. And that's the goal of today, the growth and expansion of peace and freedom. So I want you to keep that in mind when the subject gets a little tough to hear, that it's not about looking at the gruesome facts, just it's about how do we expand safety, how do we expand freedom, how do we expand peace. That's why we're here. Before we go on, I'd like to take a minute to just think about that peace and that freedom. And I think about the amazingly courageous women who inspire me every day. And I watch life coming from death places in their lives, and it is an honor. And I want us to think of those women who have stepped out of violence and stepped into themselves and into a healthy future and safety. I want to tell you a little bit about what I learned about domestic violence, not just from books, but from my clients. And I work with victims, I work with the children, and I also work with offenders. So I get to see it from all the way around. I'm also in the courts working with judges and attorneys. So I really have, like I said, a unique perspective to see from many angles. And I learned so much from my clients. And what I've learned that totally goes along with everything I've read in books is that domestic violence is a pattern of behavior. It's a pattern of behavior that seeks to establish power and control over intimate partners. Domestic violence tells their partners what to think, what to do, who to do it with, when it can be done. Domestic violence directs its targets' choices, their beliefs, their desires, their talents, their limits, their values. It twists and it distorts love and truth and trust. It tells its victim what to wear, how to interact with others, how to parent, when to spend money, how much money to spend, when to work, if they should work, if they can't work, what to eat, what to cook, what to be like, what to sound like, what to think, what to feel. It seeks to totally take over and control another person. Domestic violence uses a number of tactics to maintain that control. And actually, it starts out pretty nice. It starts out looking too good to be true. It starts out under the guise of, I love you, I care about you, it's because I want what's best for you. And then when that stops being enough, it gets nastier and nastier. And the charm disappears until after the violence, when it returns just long enough to get somebody comfortable again. Right? The belief that's underneath all of that control is I am entitled. I am entitled to do whatever I have to do, never to be uncomfortable. I am entitled to do whatever I have to do to make sure I never have to feel discomfort in any area of my life. I am entitled to do whatever I have to do to make sure that I don't ever have to experience rejection, abandonment, feeling like I'm wrong. I'm entitled. And that entitlement violates a person's whole being by controlling their emotions, their spirituality, their intellect, their freedom, their sexuality. And that's the belief that we have to challenge. Those are the behaviors we have to pay attention to. So to talk about how domestic violence fits into cultural patterns, and that kind of male dominance is a cultural phenomenon that's been with us for thousands of years. Afshan is going to speak to us, and she's the president of SATE in Rochester. SATE is an organization that works with victims of domestic violence. She's been a president there for 5 years. She's also on the board of directors for the empowerment of women through education. She's a past president for them. She has a master's degree in human resources and an MBA. She's the past president of the Pakistani American Society and a board member of the Immigration Appeals Committee, and she's accredited by them. So to say that she is beyond qualified to teach us a lot is an understatement. So let's welcome Afshan.
I do need the glasses because it catches up with you as you age.
It does.
We're all sitting there with our glasses. Thank you all for coming, first of all. As an advocate working at an organization that is against violence, and specifically violence against women, I concur with Debbie. It's totally about control. It's a power issue. It is strong versus weak. What is the difference between the honor killing and the domestic violence? Sometimes people ask that question. Well, in our perspective, honor killing is, or honor violence, is when a person is subjected to violence by her collective family or community in order to restore the honor that has been presumed to be lost by her behavior, often through expressions of sexual autonomy. That is technically the term that we are familiar with for honor violence. I'm here to speak about the culture and the traditions that are very important role in the occurrences of these acts of violence that are being perpetuated against these women. We have seen an increase of numbers of the victims just recently in the last several years, it seems like either it's a new phenomena, people ask me, or is it an epidemic? I say to that, actually, it's been happening all over through civilization. It's just been documented better now because we are more able to communicate through technology with each other. We are able to collect more data. And so we move further with the numbers that never really existed, or whether they were domestic violence, or whether they were honor violence, or how they have merged, and how do we recategorize all of them. The culture and traditions give us a sense of belonging. That's what culture does for people. Especially when they migrate, it becomes even a stronger sense of belonging for them. It becomes an identity, it's a connection, it's even pride in our heritage, we say. It gives us an exclusiveness and a sense as if we are really, truly more special than the people we are settling in with. We categorize ourselves as race, ethnicity, color, citizenship. We compare, we compete. I am better than you, I have more, you have less, I have more control. It's a power or self-esteem issue. This is our systemic problem that really does exist within us as people. So where are they happening? What are the names of the places they could be happening? They're happening all over the 6 continents. They're happening in North America, Africa, Asia, Europe. It's happening, I can name you about 31 countries that the UN in 2002, at least only in 2002, up to 2002 has labeled them. Only 31 countries, I say. And they are all over any one of these continents. So where does this act begin? Where are the roots of this act? Where and how do we justify this? My perspective on that, particularly from what I've gathered around, is that these are culturally perceived transgressions and offenses that family members or even tribal councils or community elders take upon themselves to determine guilt or innocence of an accused person. Allegedly, they might have done that. And it's not the law or it's not the courts of any one of these countries, technically. Even as we think that some countries are more tuned to it because of their religious backgrounds, even so, it is not so. These are patriarchal societies. We all live in patriarchal societies. We all know we all live in patriarchal societies. Most of us don't really worry or bother with it much because it's a way of life for all of us. But it is these societies, as we know them, that we uphold this power and so control the handling of the families and its behavior. And as such, any acts that are out of these boundaries, they are able to justify it in this way, that the term honor will allow them a leniency or an understanding from the rest of the community. And they don't just think they will be allowed it, they expect it. It is, again, what Abby said, an entitlement almost again. The culture and tradition is undeniably even has been known to be existing before religion itself. In some form or another, we've had cultures. Culture is what all of us know. These are the ways we behave, the way we act individually, or the way we act together as individuals in a community. Similarly, so is the act of violence. It is just not an act that I do to myself. It is an act that I will do to somebody else. Somebody else has to endure that act. Somebody has to feel that act of mine. And if you go all the way back to the beginning, you can, I'm sure most of you know this about Abel and Cain, whether we are religious or non-religious. That was the beginning of the violence, even before anybody could talk about religion or culture or traditions. That was the first step of violence we took. And then, of course, as we move further, we look at what happened with Moses. The male infants were killed so that the Pharaoh could hold the control. He would not lose his control and power. So we move further in, and then in Europe, it was typically known that if there was an act of violence, it was okay if it was a male doing that, as opposed to a female. And generally, the victims were the women. And currently, the number of women who are experiencing it range from the age 13 to 39. And this really has not varied very much, because it used to happen even in those times in the younger generation. The younger females were the most strongest victims. Whether it was in France or the rule in Geneva, where they drowned women if they suspected or they were accused of adultery or sexual transgressions, they were drowned in the River Rhone at that time. And interestingly, in Albania, which is more like middle and closer towards the Middle East now, Albania, they also had blood revenge was a term that was used. But it was not against a woman originally. But then it was turned around and it was made into so that it was allowed and accepted to kill a woman or murder her, as we want to call it sometimes, because of her transgressions or perceived transgressions. So there are no courts to prove that they really did that, of course. But yet the blood revenge feuds turned into somehow the violence against women, and then they were labeled as honor. Well, some of the people thought there must be a solution to this. And I hope you don't find this offensive, but I'm sure you've heard of it. It's called the chastity belt. That was created to hold the women from doing transgressions. That was to control them. And when they went to the wars, this was typically done in Europe. And I think a friend of mine the other day was talking to me about it and said, you know, they have museums in Europe that show these, what they used to call them sex museum. Now they are re-termed to be called erotic museums. And so we can see historically looking at these things, like really, we really had these to control. That was a really strong level. Then came the diseases. So we moved from the chastity belt to the diseases which are real, which were happening to everybody. Male, female, they didn't discriminate. And then we became even more moralistic. So I leave Europe, and now I go to Asia. In China, the Qing dynasty had similarly enacted rules of power and absolute power of life and death over women. If I go back again to Europe, I will remind you that I don't know if most of you know, in the Roman tradition, they had the same thing. So even though we are continents apart, we really are doing the same kind of control if you look at the comparisons. Then we move to a little bit more Central Asia, or I like to call it the subcontinent, which includes India and Pakistan and Afghanistan and Bangladesh and Burma and Nepal. And in Pakistan, they're called karo kari. It's a term that is used for the violence against women. It has nothing to do with the religion aspects, because there are multiple religions there, regardless of it's known as an Islamic country. And all of these are tribal behaviors. They don't go to a religious council. They go to their tribal council. They go to the community elders. And this is where it is decided for them. Even as people perceive it has to do with other issues, it really is a tribal and a community that has still not, either because of education or economic or other socialization and communication, spread its wing beyond that small regional area. Then if we go even further, well, in India, a little bit further, I guess I should say, we have seen this because of the wife burning, they call it sati. They burn them because it's the honor. It is an honor to be burned. That's what it used to be. If you marry out of the caste, so if I'm a Brahmin and I'm another caste, that was not acceptable. They said you have just dishonored the family. In the Sikh community, if you go into the Sikh community, even though the elders, one of the highest order of his name was Guru Gobind Singh, and he said that anybody who slays their daughter or kills their daughters or their women, he's never going to be absolved. So nobody should eat from his plate, from his home. It was the highest level. And yet in contemporary India, we still see that is happening. Sikh community is still doing that. They're doing it in Canada or in the US also. We have documentations on that. So to me, it is really embedded in the culture again, I emphasize. It is the culture. It is the culture because we are tribes first. And when we didn't have any physical property, because we were all tribal properties. We had the one important thing, we had intellectual property. The only intellectual property we had was honor and dignity. Dignity is mine. The honor comes from the other person's behavior. And so I would pass it on to my next generation, to my children, to my sons, because they are going to take care of the women, and they are our property. This was technically the term. The honor is associated with more a property term, rather, but technically because it was intellectual, you really can't identify a woman as property. And so we moved to the next level. It is the culture that does allow the traditions and the societies to stay within what they know best. This is what we did when we were back home. Somebody once said to me that the interesting thing is that when we see communities coming in and merging in with the new countries, into the new countries as refugees or migrants, what we tend to see is that the men of the family or the communities tend to look backwards. They want to hold on to the tradition. The women want to live in the present because they want nurturing, they want to make the food, they want to get what's out there to cook for the family, to nurture them. The children look into the future. And it is this future that these children are trying to merge into and adapt to, because they don't know the past traditions. When they merge, you start to see this happening in communities that technically have never gotten any knowledge of honor violence and what it is doing in other countries. And that's what we see in the US currently. In Turkey, there was a case which was more well-known, maybe some of you have heard it or not, where the father, when he killed his daughter because she was raped. That was not her doing, but it was a dishonor. So what he said was he took the wire and till she died. So many women are known, even in the US, to have been either raped. And I think we have Steubenville is like a very common thing. Everybody's heard about it lately. It is the culture within that perpetuates this violence against women. Maybe you don't want to call it honor. Maybe you want to recategorize it into an assault or something else. But if we were to break down these categorizations, what would we come on? It would be a gender-based. It is gender-based. It is easy to use that as a tool, that this is separate and then this is separate. So to me, the honor violence, domestic violence, gender violence, it really comes under one category, violence. That is where I see it coming as. If you look to listen to the blame for doing these multiple acts, there are multiple reasons given for the act of violence against gender. In cases of rape, it occurs because it's a woman's fault. We've all heard maybe sometimes here and there. She's flaunting herself. She should have known better than to dress like that. What time she was out, or she should not have been alone without a male escort at that time. Or if a woman rejects an advance in some of the other countries, what they will do to that is, and it's not because she had made advances or she had shown a sexual transgression herself. It is because somebody was rejected. And what they have done is they've used another method, which is either gang rape or acid throwing. And I think last year there was a documentary about the acid throwing. They called it Saving Face, where the woman is thrown acid, she is gone for life. So she's no good for me, but she won't take me, so I won't let her go to anybody. That is another act of violence, which is also labeled as honor violence. Bride burning is known in India. That is also an act of violence, which is about their honor because they didn't get enough money or enough dowry. So there are different forms that if we start to really break down, will they really all fit into honor, or they are really truly acts of violence? I think from the more I gather, the more information I see, the more I talk to women, the more I talk to the families, I see the changes happening because it is the education and other things that maybe can make the difference. You all will have to help us with this as we go down the road. We have seen movies such as The Help, and it talks about, and it shows the subtle things that we do and the subtle things that have been done. We are all growing communities. We are all evolving communities, no matter what rights we have now. But some of the countries that tend to have this current state of term with the honor violence are still developing. They're still historically in certain eras. They have not grown beyond that yet. We are all evolving, no matter what. Even as parents, we are evolving into a new personality, as the children tell me, oh, Mom, God, you know. And the oldest child and the youngest child has two different views of a parent. This is how we grow and how we adapt and how we move on with times, and times do change. Then we saw that movie, Gran Torino. I don't know if anybody, I guess maybe I like more movies. And I saw the subtle change. It was beautifully done movie. Subtle changes of, how you profile a whole community, and yet when you live with them and they become a part of you, you stop seeing them as a community separate from you. And then the violence that was shown about what happened to the woman, that woman was used as a tool, as a piece of property to show that I can destroy your property. That was a very, very strong message, very strong. And yet, who was helping her? Once we go beyond this profiling of each other, and once we grow beyond, we can see different things. I also hear this act belongs, well, here's another one. One of the terms for justification of the act is now more commonly recognized, of course, as honor. But I also hear people saying it doesn't happen in our communities, it only happens somewhere else. We don't want to have ownership of this problem existing in our society today. We are too educated, we are too advanced, we are too westernized, we are too modern, we are any excuse we can come up to say, okay, it's not my child, it's somebody else's, you know. The culture of our behavior to disassociate ourselves and let someone else take ownership, even if it is happening in our backyard. To this, I read somewhere, and I think it really stated it very nicely. It was the multiculturalism should not be a weakness or a concession for social injustice, nor should it be an allowance for moral blindness of crimes. And I think it so fits this issue when we are having it in the US now, coming out more in I think Buffalo had one of the strongest issues that happened here. And we've had it happen in Rochester, New York too, where I've been living. The person survived. Fortunately, 2 of them survived. So they're survivors, but that doesn't stop them from being the victims still. And the mother is paying the price for it because now the brother did it to the sister. So the mother is torn. Here she is, who should she be defending? The daughter feels the mother is not defending me. The son's like, well, why can't you help me get out of this situation? Why can't she take the blame herself again? You know, and otherwise, oh, well, there was an uncle who told the 14-year-old nephew to do that to the niece because she was mixing too much here and there. It didn't have to do with the religion of the community. It had to do with the people and the thinking they brought back with them. And like again I said, the men think in the back, women today, and the mother is just trying to struggle to keep everybody together. I couldn't even imagine being that mother, you know. Couldn't imagine being that parent. And the girl was saying, if my father was alive, this would never have happened to me. My brother thinks he is in charge of us all. My father was very progressive. So I think to myself, really, can you imagine this child thinks that this is his tradition? And who's told him that? It's the community people around him who were helping him to understand what his heritage was. The perpetrators or abusers are very close and very dear to the victims. That makes the violence even stronger and more heartrending for the victim. I don't know somebody, maybe I'll beg them, maybe I'll cry to them, maybe I'll ask forgiveness. But here I am with a family member or a community member that I know very closely. And when they do that to me, who can I turn to now? I don't have anybody to turn to. Who do I go to? Who can I ask? Because they're telling me, well, and then suddenly they bring in other aspects. Your other siblings will be affected by this. We have to do this. We have to make a point. You have to make a judgment of this out of you. We have to teach everybody lessons. The different reasons they all use to justify the acts. I can't, everybody has to think within themselves. Are we going to make it safer? Are we going to make it better for our families? Are we going to make it better for the communities? Because if it happens within one family, it is going to be an act of violence that we are allowing, with a deadly silence among the people about violence acts. It will perpetuate. It will just sort of spread out everywhere else. If we say one act of violence is not my business because it's that community over there, or that community over there, or that group, it will come to touch us too at some point. We've seen that with the gun violence that's going on now. It's coming back. We are selling them, but we are getting them back. How do we have, people say, oh, well, this is not my problem. It really should be for those who are criminals. But we move on. The convention on, we have a International Human Rights Foundation. The UN Declaration on Elimination of Violence proclaims the term violence against women means any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical or sexual or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts of coercion, arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. The Platform for Action on Women, this is my very favorite one, actually. Human Rights from the UN Fourth World Conference calls upon states to take urgent action to combat and eliminate violence against women, which is a human rights violation, resulting from harmful traditional or customary practices, cultural prejudices, and extremism. And this by itself, that there's a lot of understanding that there is culture, there is tradition that is making some of these things happen. I want to thank you all for being here, for giving me this time, and I hope that the last two questions I would like to leave you with will help you for some more food for thought. So my two questions to all of you would be, if you would like to think about them at whatever time and whenever you have a chance, are we going to be an observational society? Do we need to have observational societies? Or are we going to be transformational societies? Where do we want to be? I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you.
I would like to introduce to you now Nadia Sharam. She is an attorney, a mediator, an author, a women's rights activist. She's a board member of the New York State Council on Divorce Mediation. She's an adjunct professor at the University of Buffalo Law School. She teaches family Islamic law, or family law. She is a member of the Women Erie County and New York State Bar Associations. In 2011, she was recognized by Business First as the most influential woman in Western New York. Ms. Sharam is also a board member of the Family Justice Center, who helps women with domestic violence issues and some of the legal problems that incur. So please welcome with me Ms. Nadia Sharam.
Good afternoon, everyone. Crimes designed to silence women. This is a legal perspective. We live in a world culture that when it comes to treatment of women is discriminatory, prejudicial, misogynist, unjust, and unlawful. Let us take a moment briefly to view some of the atrocities inflicted on women. Examples of systematic and deliberate degradation of women in violations of human rights, which are gender-based, are, of course, domestic violence, socio-economic discrimination, genital mutilation, bride burning, rape, forced suicide, slavery and trafficking, stoning of women, acid attacks, and of course, honor killings. I'm sorry for the gruesome nature of these images, but just imagine how those victims felt. I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes on honor killings, which are extreme form of violence against women, which always ends in the death of the victim. Here in upstate New York, the term honor killings became more familiarized to us when in 2009, Mo Hassan killed his wife. That was the first example of honor killings for us. To give a simple definition of honor killings, it's any inappropriate behavior by the female within a given household. And you can, I think, agree with me that this leaves that inappropriate behavior to match interpretation by the male of that particular family. To give simple example of inappropriate behavior outside of the country of origins, here in United States, Canada, and in Europe, it could be that girls are being too westernized. Examples which will portray inappropriate behavior in the country of origins would be the girl has been seen to be talking to a boy who is not related to the girl. The Napoleonic Code, the French Civil Code, established under Napoleon in 1804, states, if a man catches his wife in bed with another and kills her in the heat of passion, he is exonerated from punishment. Guilty of no crime if a man kills. But the same was not true about a woman catches her husband in bed with another. A woman in the same situation was subject to the punishment set by the law for murder. A husband convicted of adultery, which would only be labeled, listen to this carefully, if a husband is caught with adultery, and you can put that label on him only if he brought the mistress and introduced her to his wife in the matrimonial house. That used to be called the crime of adultery. So you can see that it was very hard to even label such a behavior by man in 1800. Furthermore, Article 324 of the French Penal Code of the year 1810, which Ottoman Empire adopted and practiced, gave the husband a lower penalty if he caught his wife committing adultery in the same matrimonial house. The old French law was lenient with crimes committed by the husband versus with that of the wife. Affected by Roman laws, which considered that the utmost control within families is for the father and the husband. The Napoleonic Code was updated in the 1970s so that a specific father's authority upon his whole family was abolished. 1970s. Article 587 of the Italian Ruku Code enabled consideration of the cause of honor in homicide or physical injuries, providing, and these are actual laws, I didn't write them up, whoever discovers unlawful sexual relations on the part of their spouse, daughter, or sister, and in the feat of a fury occasioned by the offense to their or their family's honor causes their death, shall be punished with a prison term from 3 years up to 7 years. Deriving from European law, especially French and Italian law, the Ottoman Empire, ruling almost all Arab countries since the 16th century, enacted lower penalties on perpetrators of crime of honors. Inheriting the Roman, French, Italian, Ottoman laws, legislative measures were dealing with crimes of honor in the Arab world. For example, Jordan included a full grant or partial excuse for perpetrators of this type of crimes. While the penal code condemns the perpetrators, they may grant full or partial excuse, which could reduce the penalty or totally exempt murderers from punishment. Jordanian law, Article 340, stipulates, he who discovers his wife or one of his female relatives while committing adultery with another man and kills, wounds, or injures one or both of them is exempt from any penalty. And under Section B within the same article, he who discovers his wife or any of his sisters or female relatives with another man in an illegitimate bed and kills, wounds, or injures one or both of them benefits from reduction of penalty. I have a few more quotes to read, but I think I should stop here. I gave you the picture, didn't I? And you can see that interpretation is wide open. Now, let's see how honor killings came here to United States. The first recorded honor killings in United States happened in 1989 in St. Louis, Missouri, where a 16-year-old Tina was killed by his father as his mother held her down. This is the first time that the word honor killings was heard here in United States by authorities who were wiretapping the parents' house because they were suspected to be terrorists. Unfortunately, even though it was the first time, but was not the last time, and since then, and more so in recent years, we have had number of murders which have been suspected to be honor killings, and in particular not from where we are situated geographically in Toronto, Canada. Now, why is it important to classify honor killings as a separate crime, punishable by the fullest punishment? I have a chart here that I would like to get right to the chart. Please take a few minutes and look here at my own drafted legal chart. I'm comparing here premeditated murder, crimes of passion, domestic violence, honor killing murders, hate crimes, and the hybrid of all, which is what we deal with here in United States. Premeditated murder, as the name said, requires premeditation. I think the term is very clear to all of us, and I think that I don't go into description of that. Crimes of passion, for those of you who are as old as I am, about a decade ago here in Buffalo, we had a famous case here happened that the husband walked into the bedroom of his estranged wife and caught her in bed with the state trooper. They were separated. And he took out his gun and killed and shot the state trooper and the wife. I don't know if any of you remember. I see some nods. And his very good criminal defense team, they pleaded for a reduced penalty because they said it's crime of passion. Again, crime of passion, you ask the court for reduced penalty, not to be exonerated from killing your partner. And in this case, he lost, and a state proved that it was actually premeditated murder because it took him some time to walk upstairs. He had seen the state trooper's car that he knew or should have known it was his car, parked outside his house. He did not ring the doorbell, even though he wasn't living there. He had a key still to the house. Yes, I'm being told that I'm running out of time. Okay, so now the most important distinction that I would like you to take away from here, from my talk, is a big distinction between domestic violence and honor killings. I'm looking at it from cultural aspects. Honor killings and domestic violence. Domestic violence is about, of course, power and control over the victim, without any question. It's a systematic control. It may take years and years to train your wife or your intimate partner to behave just the way you want her to behave. And at the end, maybe it ends in the killing of the victim, maybe. But not all domestic violence ends in the killing of the victim. Whereas honor killings is about killing the victim, not to teach the victim a lesson, because the victim is dead. Honor killing is about teaching your immediate household, your extended family, the community that you are living at, how girls and females should behave. And why should we care? Why do I go at length through distinguishing between first premeditated murder, and then I bring it home, and I would think that we have the hybrid of all under the category of domestic violence and honored killings? Because I truly believe, and I think we should just go faster here, I truly believe in order to cure any disease, we must first identify the disease. We all know what cancer is now, right? Abnormal overgrowth of hormones. But we don't treat all cancers the same way. The way lung cancer treatment is much different the way cancer for skin is. The way you treat cancer for breast is different than the way you treat prostate cancer. Yes, and I'm rushing here now. Yes, honor killings are domestic violence. It's about power and control. But it is an extreme form of that power and control. And I'm going to stop here, but I'll be back, I promise. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. Didn't I tell you we'd be learning a lot? Now, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Shanaz Butt. She's a professor of pharmacology and toxicology and the associate dean for the College of Graduate Studies and Research at the University of the Sciences in Philadelphia. Her research focuses on the effects of stress and psychiatric disorders and is funded by the National Institute of Health. In her spare time, Shanaz is actively involved in community service. I can attest to that. She served as the national president of the Women's Auxiliary for the Ahmadiyya Muslim in 2000 to 2010. In 2011, she was elected as the founding president of the Muslim Women's Science Association. In 2012, as director of Humanities First USA, Feed the Hungry American program. She actively advocates against hunger and food wastage. Shanaz serves on the advisory boards of organizations dedicated to community service, including Humanity First, National Resource Center on Domestic Violence, and Pathways in Pennsylvania. And it's my great honor to introduce her to you.
Thank you, Debbie. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. As the speakers have already mentioned, the practice of honor killing has been under increasing global scrutiny because of recent incidences in the Northern Hemisphere. And in many of these cases, these acts of violence have been justified as being teachings of Islam, when in actuality such practices run counter to the philosophy of Islam. So my goal this afternoon on this panel is to clear up some of the misconceptions related to Islam as it may pertain to honor killing. And in preparing for this seminar, I searched, but I could not find any background in Islam for the practice of honor crimes. There is no verse in the Holy Quran that directs a believing man or a woman to commit such horrific acts against any other human being, leave alone their own family members. There is no recorded quotation, nor practice of Prophet Muhammad that sanctions such crimes. Shireen Abadi, the first Muslim woman from Iran who received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2003, said that there is no contradiction between Islam and human rights. It is not Islam that oppresses women. It is the working interpretation of Islam that oppresses women. Karen Armstrong writes in her book, Islam, A Short History, that there is no religion in the modern world that is feared or misunderstood as much as Islam is. And unfortunately, this fear and distrust seems to be rising, especially in the West, because a recent report by the Pew Research Center found that after the tragic incident of 2001, 9/11, when the public was polled, 25% said that they felt Islam was a violent religion. Today, in 2013, the report says that 42% of the public today says that Islam is the most violent religion compared to any other religion. And over the past 10 to 12 years, if you look at the activities of Taliban, if you look at Al-Qaeda, you can't help yourself because terrorism has become synonymous with the word Islam. And with it comes the way we think about women and the way Islam treats women. Because the common opinion by a lot of people, if you talk to them, is that Islam is a religion that oppresses women, treats them as second-class citizens, and snatches away their rights. And you heard today from the speakers here that these misconceptions are infused with the burden of culture and traditions. So let me then talk to you a little bit about the teachings of Islam as they might pertain to today's topic. The teachings of Islam are intended to create peace and order, not chaos and violence, no matter whether you're talking at an individual level, at a communal level, or at a global level. Muslims are enjoined to greet each other with Assalamu alaikum, which means may peace be on you. The Quran states in chapter 7, verse 57, and create not disorder in the earth after it has been set into order. So we are not here to create violence and we're not here to create chaos. Islam stresses the respect and sanctity of human life. In chapter 5, verse 32, we are told that anyone who saves a life, it is as if they've saved the whole of mankind. And if you have killed another person, then it is as if you've killed the whole of mankind. Islam recognizes the inherent dignity that God has given all human beings, regardless of your race or your gender or your ethnicity. The Prophet gave the highest level of respect to a mother when he said that paradise lies under the feet of the mother. The Prophet also, in his final sermon, said to the community, treat your women well and be kind to them because they are your partners and your helpers. So whatever I've told you just now, so far, does not seem like as if Islam is teaching people to be violent or to hurt other human beings. About 1500 years ago, Islam forbade the practice of infanticide. Chapter 6, verse 51 and chapter 17, verse 31 says, you shall not kill your children for fear of poverty. We provide for them as we provide for you. Killing is a gross offense. The Prophet also said to his followers, do not kill an old person, do not kill a child, or do not kill a woman. So how can that same Islam, when 1500 years ago, forbade infanticide, forbade the killing of old people, women, and children, now all of a sudden is going to approve violence and honor killing in this present century? Just cannot happen. The Quran says very clearly that each of us has freedom of choice. We are told there is no compulsion in religion. So therefore, no force or imposition can be put on any human being to make them follow according to our wishes. Even when we talk about marriage, the Islamic law says that there has to be the consent of both parties and forbids a marriage against free will. In chapter 4, verse 19, we are told, you are forbidden to marry a woman against her will. Based on these teachings then, it applies that a father cannot force his daughter to marry somebody she doesn't want to marry. Nor can a man tell a woman, you have to marry me against her free will. Thus, there is no question of force, no question of violence, and no reason to kill a family member just because they did not listen to you or did not agree with you, and then to justify that because it is the teachings of Islam. The Quran, after giving us freedom of choice, also allows us to bear the consequences of that choice. It allows us for personal accountability. We are told, he who follows the right way follows it for the good of his own soul, and he who goes astray only for his own loss. And no bearer of burden shall bear the burden of another person. Chapter 17, verse 15. So therefore, no matter how guilty someone is, you cannot transfer guilt to somebody else. And if a woman does decide to engage in immoral behavior and goes against the wishes of her family, her husband, her brother, her father, then she bears the consequences of her own action. So after I've said all this to you, and I've given you many references, there's going to be a quiz at the end of this. The question then arises that if Islam does not sanctify or does not justify honor killing, then why is it happening? And I think you heard it from Afsha, you heard it from Debbie, you heard it from Nadia. The problem of honor killing really has very little to do with morality. It has very little to do with a woman being pious. It's got to do with domination, it's got to do with power over a wife or a daughter. These honor killings are another form of terrorism, just like rape, and these acts define gender lines and they make women chronically unsafe. The traditional concept of honor killing is rooted in the perception that a woman is just my property. I can do whatever I want with her. It is my honor that is being defiled. She has not followed my social norms. But perhaps the most common reason, I think, is something that we all have this emotion, jealousy. Jealousy is in all of us. And it is jealousy that causes a father or a brother or a husband to attack his family members. So if you think about it, the emotions that I just described, domination, instilling fear in somebody who may be weaker than you, revenge, jealousy, these are the ingredients of what we call the crimes of passion. You all agree with me? And we all have it, regardless of what race, religion, education, or socioeconomic class we may belong to. Because if you think about it, tell me, which religion is going to allow a father to kill his 6 daughters? Which religion is going to tell a husband you can gouge out your wife's eyes? Which religion tells a brother you can stab your sister multiple times? No religion is going to allow this, and not Islam for sure. These are crimes of passion, which in America, if you think about today, the statistics of today, you know that approximately 1,200 women are killed every year by their husband or their intimate partners. But we do not attribute a specific teaching of a religion to these acts of domestic violence. And yet we are very quick to label honor killing when it comes to these kind of acts, and we say this is, of course, the part and parcel of Islamic teachings. Unfortunately, in conclusion, I will say that the teachings of the Holy Quran, of any holy scripture for that matter, will always be prone to misinterpretation, will always be perverted by political groups, by extremist groups, because it is going to suit their ends. The practice of honor killing is an act of murder, period. No society should tolerate these crimes. We need to put reforms in place so that we can track those who are responsible, who are putting our women into such insecurities. As long as women suffer needlessly, we cannot expect them to be useful members of a community, leave alone useful members of a family unit. And we need to do this regardless of what their nationality is, what their culture is, what their race is, or what religion they belong to. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, if you have any questions for Dr. Shanaz, please put them on this page. Okay. I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of misconceptions that I've had in my brain cleared up by working with these women and hearing from these women. I hope you have too. And I have to say, from my experience and my work, that Muslims are not the only people that use religion to justify violence or to justify power and control. I have worked, sadly, and it grieves me to say this, sadly, with way too many women who have been told by their Christian pastors to submit, that their beating is their fault, that they're not submissive enough, they don't pray enough, they're not holy enough. This is not an issue solely of Muslims. There are very conservative, very misunderstood, very misguided pastors and priests in our society that distort Christian teaching, that confuse male dominance and patriarchy with religion. It is not the same, right? When we, I just can't say how hard it is for women of any faith when they are sitting in my office saying, but I don't want to disobey God, but I don't want to betray my faith. It grieves my soul more than I can tell you, because And no, God does not ever want people to be harmed. There's no fear in love. You know, this is where scripture and psychology kind of meet here, right? And we're talking about scriptures from the Torah, scriptures from the Bible, scriptures from the Holy Quran. It doesn't matter. They meet because we know that first people need food, shelter, and clothing, right? Dr. Maslow. Let's go back to Psych 101. Second thing they need is safety. The third thing is a sense of love and belonging. If there's not food, shelter, and clothing, and there's not safety, people cannot feel love or experience love. There is no fear. There is no power and control in love. It needs to be free. It's recorded in scriptures, in Christian scriptures, right, that Jesus went against the grain in his day. We heard it from our legal expert here about the Napoleonic Code and women being stoned. Well, here comes Jesus walking along when this woman is just about to get stoned, and tradition, you know, true to tradition, the man's not going to get stoned. He's probably throwing him, the man that was in bed with her, right? He's throwing with the rest of them. And Jesus comes walking around and says, hey, wait a minute, guys. And he writes something in the sand. I don't know what he's writing. Is he writing the names of other sins? I don't know. And says, if you don't have a sin, then throw the first stone. And one by one, people dropped their stones and walked away. He stopped the stoning. Right? Christianity is not about the submission of women. The very first person Jesus showed himself to was a woman when he rose. He hung out with a woman that was one of those people to stay away from at a well. She was a Samaritan, and she was a woman, and she was divorced, which means she was dumped 5 times because women could not initiate divorce in those days. And he hung out with her. So Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, no world religion sanctions domestic violence or the control of women. They don't. People do. Fear does, right? So I think we need to really think and rethink our ideas about what domestic violence is, about excuses people try to use, about distortions of religion. Terrorism is terrorism, whether it's happening globally or it's happening in a home. Whether it's the KKK saying this is what God tells me to do, or it's a man in a house, and it doesn't matter what religion, it doesn't matter what culture, it doesn't matter socioeconomic class. If it's a man in a house telling somebody what to think, what to feel, what to do, intimidating her, scaring her, it is violence. It is violating a person's well-being. It has nothing to do with any kind of religion. We hang on to the names, we hang on to the edges of religion, and we forget the core. And the core is always the same. It's love, it's peace, it's freedom, it's charity, it's mercy. Don't confuse those misinterpretations of scripture of any kind with the acts of violent terrorists. We're here for a reason today. We're here because we want to further peace. We want to further freedom. We want to further healthy love. We're here not to just have an event, not to just learn, but to do something. And so I want you now at your table, after you've taken some time to write your questions, I want you to take a few minutes to discuss with each other what you've heard today. And I want you to discuss with a specific idea in mind. I want you to discuss what can you do collectively, what can we do individually to go forward from here, to increase awareness, to increase safety, to work on prevention? What can we do as a people, as a room full of people? What can we do for next steps? I want this to be a beginning, not just an afternoon. I think we all want that. I think we all want to make this be a beginning of what do we do to make our women, our children, our families places of peace, places of safety, places of true love. So I want you to be specific. I want you to be concrete. I don't want some vague kind of idea. I want it very clear. So take some time at your tables to discuss what can we do that's clear. Make some notes, and we're going to come back and we're going to have hear from each of you about some ideas. I would like you to keep in the back of your mind for, did we say July 13th, a Saturday, maybe meeting again. And we'll let you know dates and, times and places. And I promise you, when we meet again, it will be 1 hour, it will be concrete, it will be specific, and it will be action-orientated. I'm not going to waste a beautiful sunny Saturday in the summer, not a chance. But we're going to make some steps to move forward, but I need the steps to come from you. So, again, questions on these, somebody will pick them up for our panelists, and we'll have our panelists address it. Have conversation at your table, be creative, be proactive, be concrete, be specific. Okay, 10 minutes? Take about 10 minutes. And do you want me to talk about our sponsors now, or should I wait? Can we do that now? I just want, give me another minute here. I want to thank our sponsors today, and I have a list of them in my pile of notes here. Satay from Rochester is a sponsor, and I want to thank them very much. I want to thank the YWCA of Tonawandas for sponsoring this afternoon. The Matrimonial Services Nadia Sharam, the Kebab and Curry Restaurant, and Refulgent. Say it for me. Refulgent, thank you, sorry. I can't read my own writing. It's a software company, and not only is it a software company, but it's a software company owned and operated by two young, 24-year-old young men who care about this issue. And so I think, and I see men in our audience, I am so grateful to see you guys here, because this isn't just a women's issue, it's a society issue. So thank you to all of our sponsors, and I would also like to say that we have, in the corner over here, as you can see my jewelry that I'm modeling, some homemade jewelry, purses, scarves from, hang on, I will tell you the name, from an organization called Threads of Change for women in Palestine are making jewelry to support themselves. So feel free to take a look, and we can even shop today.
Here's the question.
Okay, and your questions. Again, what can we do culturally, to spread awareness? What can we do preventively to keep women safe? What are very concrete next steps?
At our table, because there were so many people at it, it was hard for us to come up with recommendations, but we did. We believe there needs to be some changes in laws. We have to deal with economic issues. With the United States having such an incredible economic problem, and last but not least, educational in terms of what we do in our classrooms. So 3 things.
Thank you. Okay, we have 6. The first is to publish on a weekly basis a mixture of passages from different faiths pertaining to the nonviolent treatment and care of women. The second is education for young children on gender interactions and taking care of each other. The third is training law enforcement in the beliefs and misconceptions, as well as the laws themselves. Erie County has a pro-arrest policy. It's been in effect for more than 15 years. That means that a woman does not have to press charges. The police have the authority to arrest, and they are not. Yes. Educating victims on their rights and available resources. And the best way we thought to do that was to require police to have to call crisis services every time they respond to a DV call, so that crisis services can follow up. And then print brochures and pamphlets that we can put in community centers, high schools, anywhere that people congregate, to talk about available resources and educate.
I don't think we followed the directions too well. But we had a rather engaged conversation related to the violence in the media, and that it is perpetuated constantly, and that we are literally buying it for our culture, for our society. When we pay to see a movie, we are buying it and we're encouraging them to make more of the same. And it just seems to go on and on and on. We don't have any answers. Yeah, I don't know. I think we don't go. I certainly don't go. I can almost get chased out of the theater when I'm watching the previews, and they turn them up so loud. So I really don't know, except that, I mean, I think we have to not let our children see those things. I mean, our children are engaged in violence just because they live in the world, let alone get fed by the media constant images of gratuitous violence, absolute, just awful, awful violence. So I don't know any answers. I just know that we had some questions. I don't know if anybody else here wants to say anything. I'm looking for you. Thanks.
My name is Nashia Debeshi, and I have...
Yes, so nice to see you here.
Nice to see you, too. Okay, I'm thinking of an idea for the next step. I want to make a place of refuge for women that are dealing with this honor thing. For those girls who fear being killed by very controlling family members, and it's all for honor. I said, I am willing to use my home as a safe house. There is room in my home for 10 women, and that is a start when there's room in the heart. I can help them apply for Medicaid, for food stamps, and help them to get a job. I would like for us to set up some kind of funding for all the people who are willing to use their homes just as I am, and make a place of refuge.
Okay, good idea. Thank you. I have a mic. Is that on? No.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Samah. I'm a social worker. I work with Arab women in Israel, Palestine, and for 17 years till now, I work with domestic violence victims and trying to do something about honor crimes in my community. And I want to contribute a little bit of my our table ideas. And I think that you, as American society, can be proud of making of achievement, a huge achievement regarding child abuse. I just finished reading a book about how the media and the NGOs and the government or the society, the American society, now agree from, you can't find anyone who agreed to that child abuse thing. So it's and we know that few decades before, it was like, we can discuss this, and in matter of education and the right of parents to, to educate their children. I think that we as a society here and all over the world can take this example and making gender education or gender crimes or gender abuse as our case, and we will. It's holistic and it's very long-term, long trip to do together, but it have to be done. And when we talk about women issue or violence against women, we used to use terms like domestic, family, intimate partner, passion, love. It's all good words combined to bad consequences. So I think each one of this room, at least, start, using the words properly and thinking about gender crimes and crimes against women or crimes against female, and then the terminology of us, it will make another reality. So in terms of practical things that we can start to do, I think that we are here in the global, we are women, and we have partners, the men. So if they have the power, and we are, for now, it's temporary, our globe is controlled by male. So let's make this problem, this issue, their problem also. So I think that we have to do everything to make men our partners to find the solutions. And in each community, in each neighborhood, you will find decent men around you, and key holders, stakeholders, political leaders, religious leaders that can be with you, and we will find a way to engage them, enroll them to our struggle. Other American thing that my colleague here says, the money. Economics. It's all about control and economics and empowering women economically and their economic awareness that they can be independent, they can be by themselves if they and they can go outside abusive relationship. And actually, this corner is one of our models of helping women go outside this domestic violence or violence circle, because they can be by their own and live in safe and peace. The last thing that I really believe in is everybody will tell you it's about education, Yes, it's gender education. We have to learn and to know what our children are learning in their school, what they think about gender relationship, what they think about the balance between female and male. And we have to start in the kindergarten.
Oh, thank you so much.
And that's it. Thank you.
This seems to be such a common thread, right? The education from little up. So I'm hearing this from a number of tables. I think that's something we got to keep in our consciousness as that's going along. There's somebody raising their hand back here, over here. Oh, did you guys have your hand up here too? Okay. And so, while you're standing here, I'll keep you from running all over the room, huh?
Myself, my name is Yahya Umar. I'm working two places, by the way. I work with HEAL International, which we deal with this issue. Conflict resolution and also domestic violence issue. And I do also, I'm a leader of Imams Council in Western New York. When it comes to the people are complaining, they say that, blaming that it is from the Islam. We always try to tell them, just such a, like you said. And by the way, after what happened to Asia and all the Imams, we had a seminar for them here in Buffalo, and then they took us to Virginia also. We did it for 3 days. So we did also all the imams around US, we have a statement which saying that this is against Islam and domestic violence. We have to stop, we have to stop that domestic violence happen anywhere. And by the way, this is what I think. I think that we have 3 people to teach, to talk about that issue for 3 of the people. 1 is a man, and 2nd is woman, and the 3rd is the youths, the next generation. The man, which we deal with them, that we say that, okay, this is not religion, this is a disease, that you have it. So you have to stop it. And some of them, they claim that because of, as I come from Africa, we think, as a man, we think we are the boss at home. Nobody can talk when we are. So when they come here, they come just like that. They come and they have that kind of mentality. How I deal with these people? When they come to me, I say that, listen, here in America, by the way, this is not good in your country and here too. And this is America. You have to know that people are divided. Means you are the number 4 category. There is 3 categories. Here, women number 1, and children number 2, and dog number 3, and you are number 4. And they just say that, oh, what is that? I said that this is how it's going to happen. Here, you don't have that. You have the same rights. Man and woman always have the same right. If you are going to say that, this is not going to work. That's how to teach the people, men who have that kind of mentality. We sit with them and we educate them.
I need you to teach that to American men, some of them as well.
And women, what we do, it is when they come to us, we tell them that, listen here, nobody hide anything. There is 2 ways that you're gonna get help. One is your imam or your priest, the church. You go and inform them what's happening. And second, if that step comes to, there is people and law enforcement who deal with this issue, who can stop that. You don't have to scare, come directly forward to us, and we will deal with you. And the third one, which is the youth, the common youth, we have that program in HEAL International, and we deal with them on a daily basis, and they come to us in summer. We help them to be educated in this issue. This issue say that, especially those who are here in America, they learn, they have to go to the school, they learn about it. But those who come with that mentality, we tell them that this is not going to work. This is what Islam say, this is what the Christianity say, and this is how to deal. You have to respect. Respect is one of the most important things, that to respect each other. Everybody has the right, and God is watching us. This is how we deal with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessica from YWCA, and our table actually talked also a lot about education and awareness. So we talked about doing panels or seminars specifically with men, specifically with religious leaders to open dialogue, and also interfaith kind of seminars with religious leaders. We talked about doing education in secondary schools, so maybe combining this kind of a panel with classes doing a project around actually researching some of the history, some of the scripture, some of the laws, so actually to expand and engage kind of more conversation. We talked about doing things like a clothesline project or a shoe exhibition project where actually the pieces of clothing or shoes represent women who have experienced gender-based violence, and young people in schools actually bringing their whole families and bringing the community, so actually having a community engagement piece around raising awareness. We also talked about the International Women's Development Agency in Australia produced a video about 6 months ago about what would a world without violence look like and feel like, and it was just little short clips where people wrote something on a piece of paper and held it up. And then they just put the video on the internet and people were able to see it. So it was a really great way to have a really diverse group of people contribute and make a statement, and then be able to share it in a free medium through the internet.
Yeah,
so
and I love that because that's about the proactive piece of it. So we're seeing the positive. That's great.
Mm-hmm. And then we also talked about providing a safe space where especially women who have experienced gender-based violence can share and talk about and strategize together, but also a way to feed that wisdom and that knowledge and that experience into policymaking and into change, so that the people who have the most knowledge are the people who are making the biggest impact on what needs to happen.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andrea, and we were talking over here about the changes that we see needing to be made. And from my point of view, I've been on that side of it, and I feel like it's very important to send the message, not that what women can do to keep themselves safe, but what men can do to make this wrong. And the message should not be, well, women, this is what you can do to keep yourself safe. The message should be, stop hitting your wife. And women need to know that they're not wrong, that the men are wrong. So really domestic violence I see as being fueled from women not knowing that they're not wrong, because it's so much of a mental control as well as a physical control that women really need to be educated that they are right and that this is wrong, and men need to be educated that this is wrong and this isn't how you deal with your emotions. And I really feel that the behavior that we should be teaching is to protect your family, and men should learn from sources like this, that women aren't gathering together at events like this to learn how to be safe, that we're gathering together to learn that that behavior is wrong.
Thank you.
I'm a little afraid to start because I don't know where I'm going to end. Having been fired by all of this. My name is Ann Palermo. I used to be the addictions program manager at ECMC before I retired.
That's why you look familiar. Hello.
Oh, isn't it? I have 2 points that I would like to make. The one is, I read the paper already this morning, and in the regional section, you know, they have local police news. You know, who got DWIs last night? And they have about 8 separate articles on who got DWIs. And I'll bet you that there were a whole lot of domestic violence calls last night, and not one of them is in the paper with anybody's name. And that just might be a deterrent if you knew that tomorrow morning you're going to read about yourself in the paper. I think you need to be public. You need to get it out there and get the secrets and the lies out there. Because it's easy enough. This lady saying she would take these people into her house, this is wonderful, and that's exactly what some of them need. But some of them have been involved in it for so long, they'll stay with you for 2 days and they'll go right back to him. Because he's the source of money, and he's been tearing away at their self-confidence for so many years, right? Yes. So he knows, they know they're useless. They might as well go back and, you know, start over again.
Right.
The issue of recanting has not been addressed, and maybe this is not the forum to do it. And because very often that's exactly what happens, and y'all know that, anybody
Right.
that's worked in the field. You know,
Right.
it wasn't that bad, he didn't hurt me that much.
Or
and
she's being threatened that if she doesn't recant, it's going to be worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other point I wanted to make was, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think that so much of it has, I was a single parent, but so much of it seems to have to do with little babies take so long to grow up. You know, and
then it seems so fast at the same time, doesn't it? My little baby is
Yeah.
way grown up now.
Yeah. I have a grandson now, so I'm hog heaven over that. But you need a lot of money to take care of a kid. You need milk every day. And that can certainly keep you in a situation where, I mean, you're dead in the water if you go out there by yourself.
Right.
Okay. So really those
So
are the,
economic empowerment for women, you're echoing, and maybe
a more public responsibility.
Okay. I like
But that's what I'm saying. And I'm sure that, you know, if we went down to city court tomorrow morning, we would be seeing a whole lot of people being dragged in there for, you got charged with this, this, and this.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe that's part of a public, what you call it, a public...
it's public record.
Public record.
Right.
So maybe the paper would be a good idea to start.
Right.
Anyway.
Maybe we need a blog like that, huh? These are the men to stay away from,
There
ladies.
you go. Anyway, I'll stop because I could go on forever. Thank you for
so
listening
much.
to me.
So, and this gentleman over here has his hands up. A couple gentlemen over here.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
This is Othman Shibli. We talked, one thing I want to say, that all these points were mentioned. Those are really good start, and we have to do it. Second thing, I think this title is a little bit misleading for me, what we are trying to accomplish. We probably have to start from here by saying that killing is not an honorable thing. You know, we should start to change the culture of this word. So maybe dishonor, I mean, to say that killing is honor killing, it's really,
Right.
killing is a dishonor, not an honor.
We should start coining that. I love that. Start saying dishonor killing.
Right. So that's the first thing. Second thing, this is, as Professor Afshan said, this is a universal phenomena, unfortunately. So maybe it should start first with domestic violence against women that has different faces based on different culture, not to single out one thing that's happened. It's not acceptable in Islam or any other religion. So I would start first with domestic violence against women, universal work that we all have to work together, then using religion, culture, values to fight this dishonorable thing that it is happening, and it touch every single person and human being in this world. So maybe we should do something so it's not, so we can work. Part of it is education. Part of it is a religious leader. Part of it, many of people who does these things, they don't go even to the church or the mosque. So we have to target the general public as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Uma, and I'm currently a sophomore in high school. And some things we discussed was that, like for kids our age, we can be involved in high school, having clubs after school, letting people be more aware of it in school, having funds. And also that if we see someone, our friends or someone, our family member, who was a victim of this, we can, instead of kind of stepping back and being not, oh, I don't want to be involved in this, I don't want to get into it, we can maybe take a step further and start a chain reaction helping others. And also we talked about was preventing this, that if we as like family together, that as like women have like the burden to have like their kids grow up and they have all the burden to do this, that men have the same amount of rights, that they have to help their kids grow up too. And if the men, women work together, the parents work together and give their kids guide their kids to the right path and help them out, then this can really prevent it also. So
good, thank you. So you're going to be starting this club at school?
Hopefully, yes.
Okay.
Within my community, we are now working with young girls and women of domestic violence. I guess my largest concern is that women have truly the power to make the changes that need to be made, but we do not work as a unit, not even within agencies. There was a woman that went to a domestic violence agency for help because she was being beat up by her husband. She ended up going back home. He beat her up again, thought that he killed her, so he called her mother and said, "I've killed your daughter, so now I'm going to kill myself." So he shot and killed himself on the phone while the woman is listening, and the wife actually ended up surviving. The main issue here, regardless of where you are coming from, is that women very often are not protected, whether they're in their homes. You have an entirely different issue when you're dealing with religion.
Yep.
You have a very serious issue when you are dealing with men that are police officers and law enforcement, like the sheriff who killed his wife in school.
Right.
So unless we're really willing to be honest about the discrimination that exists within domestic violence, women are going to die every single day.
And they are.
And they are.
And it needs to stop. I agree with you. So I like that idea too. You guys are so brilliant in this audience. I'm inspired by you. So to talk together more as women and work together more as women and work it more collectively. Great idea.
No, it can't be an idea. It's something that has to be
done, placed
in action, which I'm finding is a very difficult process.
It
because
is.
My case has made it to the United Nations.
But
the United States does not respect the laws that govern and protect women for this country.
Okay, and now we're ready to answer some questions for you.
The first question, I'm sort of going through the ones how I started talking, so I'm going to take the question from the first aspect of what I started to say in my talk. The question is, please explain again the aspects of intellectual honor or dishonor and cultural dishonor. What I was referring to is intellectual property. When people don't have any physical property, when it is all communal, when it all belongs to community. And I was referring specifically to the tribal mentality and the times past where everything was tribal. Everything was as a community as a whole. We've gone quite a ways away from the community aspects of things. But that at that time and in those times, it used to be that because everything was community except the wife or the spouse or your partner, that therefore was being termed as intellectual property because it's in your mind, it's mine, this is my wife. That was intellectual property I was referring to. The cultural dishonor part of the intellectual property to my knowledge or to my experience and to my information that I have been able to assess. And this is a very, of course, personal opinion, mind you. It is that because we believe it's a traditional right, it is a traditional entitlement, I connect it with the cultural rather than the religion aspect, because we are many civilizations before religion came. This existence of, even in animals you see that, even in apes, if you go back, oh well, if you believe in Charles Darwin and the theory of evolution and so on and so forth, you go back about mine and yours. And that's a cultural or evolutionary aspect that I was talking about, my honor, my thing, my property. And that is what I was translating into intellectual property, as opposed to a physical house. We didn't have cars, we just had tents, or we had maybe a camel or a goat or a lamb or a cow, and that is the intellectual property I was trying to refer to, is it's in the mind. The next question I had was, are infanticide and abortion perceived as the same? From my experience, my knowledge, my assessment, and again refer, it's my personal opinion from what I have learned and seen, they are all acts of violence. And because we are talking about violence and the different labels it's carrying with it, all acts of violence are discriminating against something or someone or some being. People can say, I'm pro-abortion, I'm anti-abortion. It doesn't matter. Either way, regardless, we are trying to do control and power and to dictate. That is what the act of violence is trying to enforce, is the control. And that is specifically what I was trying to refer to the act of violence, whether it's infanticide or abortion. So I don't know if that helps you clarify what I see, violence and control. The next one, and I think Nadia wants to share this with me a little later, but I'll give you what my perspective on that is. It was the patriarchal system creates and perpetuates the sole ownership of power by men. How can we change or begin to change this system? I wanted to do more time, but, we have Debbie sitting here. So we're all blaming her for this one. Of course, lesson learned from our talks. Blame the next one. I think when the gang rape took place in India, and I don't know if how many of you heard about it or are aware of it, and it's not the only place it's taken place. It's taken place in Pakistan. It's taken place other places too. But those are the two prominent ones that came in the last 2-3 years at least. And the one in India didn't survive. The one in Pakistan did survive. And she's taken it to a whole new level of creating schools and education. That is the one aspect everybody's common, I think it's a common thread that everybody's seen, education, education, education. Here is what, when the gang rape in India took place, I saw this in the newspaper clipping, and I wish I'd had the sense then to cut it out, because I can't remember. Memory goes pretty fast. We have 8 kids, so something or the other stirs it to a different level. Education, yes, is one of the ways to help to change. Economics, a lot of people say, can make the difference. If you have economics, then you have more to worry about than your food and your stomach being full. There's a saying back home that says, if you've got a full stomach, you can look at anything else. Then you can complain and whine about everything else. But one of the things on that cutting that I saw of the newspaper clipping was, it said something about, don't tell us what to tell our daughters, but tell us how to teach our sons to respect and to believe. And I think as mothers and sisters and grandmothers, which is where my role is nowadays, is to teach ourselves, our children, particularly our sons, how to respect not just another human being, but particularly with emphasis. Because if you just say human being, the boys have a selective memory sometimes. At least my 5 boys do. So I tell them, no, you have to respect every human being, which means a female, boys. Listen to me, And that, I think, is when we have daughter-in-laws, that's another way we can defend our sons when they make wrong moves. We want to be very alert that we teach our sons, we teach our brothers, we teach our husbands. We can all teach each other, and education is whether we start at kindergarten or what. And last, my very favorite one. It says, each religion, it says, you seem to excuse religion from all responsibility for violence against women. And not all Abrahamic religions are not all Abrahamic religions male privileged. For example, Lot offered his daughter to the male mob in Sodom. This was equivalent to condemning them to rape and murder to save the male guests. And I think, first of all, there was a culture that existed for the religions even, where they came in. They came in to recreate the cultures. They came in to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, or try to do, make changes, try to educate them, try to improve them from where they were already. And yes, that is what we know historically, and from religions, that is what took place. And there's a term that sometimes I say to people, it's a cultural offering. Was it a cultural offering? I don't know the answer. Or was it just a religious offering because they had the religion? That is a question for every one of you to individually think of. My thought was it was cultural because that is why the religions came in, to help us relearn. And a lot of times I hear this term, in the image of God. I think there was last year they had or last fall, they had a culture of religions here, and I listened to a video, or saw a video, and I loved it. I wanted to replay that particular term that was said, was we have it in the image of God. It's male. Yeah. It's a male image, and I think it was Jean Campbell who had made that comment in that one, and I really liked that. I wanted to bring that up. My granddaughter, and it's a very funny, and I'll leave you with this one. She seems to think that it's her grandmother, both grandmothers who give her gifts. It's a mom who gives her gifts. It's an aunt who gives her gifts. It's never the males who come and give her the gifts. So my daughter said to her, well, what do you think of God? She said, oh, I love her. She gives me all the gifts.
I wanted all to see this here. This is my conclusion. And I'm saying that as a woman, as a feminist, as a mother, and as a daughter, as an educator, and as a lawyer. This is our solution. To change the culture and to change the social mindset of people, we have to also create a push from top. And from the top, I mean from our court system and legislators. And we have to just punish people who are creating this kind of idea that any religion is endorsing such violences. One of the questions here, we have several questions here regarding honor killings. One of the questions is that, isn't honor killings prominently among Muslims? Yes, it is true. It is not the religion, it is not the scripture, it is not Quran, it is not the Prophet Muhammad, which has endorsed such brutal killing of women, of our daughters. In mid-6th century, it was forbidden to kill unborn female babies, or even shortly after they gave birth to a female. If it was forbidden again in mid-6th centuries, how could we endorse it as a religion, as a religious person, as a religious clergy in 21st century? It's just not there. So nobody can stand here and say that Islam endorses honor killings. But the truth is that majority of honor killings are happening among Muslims, by Muslims, on Muslims. And now that we know the problem, we have to try to resolve it. If we call ourselves Muslims, then we have to try to stop those Muslims who believe it is God-given rights to men to control their wives to the extreme of killing them. In my opinion, that is the answer for now. It's not going to come from religion, because apparently many Muslims are committing this crime. Then what we need in 21st century is the law. Honor killings, I think there might have been just a mix-up or misunderstanding here, that regardless of the claim of the perpetrator, regardless of his defense, whether it is his culture or his religion or whatever he can say, it is a premeditated first-degree murder in the United States, and it is going to stay that way. Now, there is a cultural element to those Muslim men who are committing this type of crimes under the category of honor. But that still does not exonerate them under the law. I got another poke from Debbie here.
Let's move to the next question. I know that poke.
See, the questions which I have here, these 5 of them are all have to do with honor killings. So I have combined them. So I'm on question 2 now, but it's all about honor killings. Now, we have started using, by we I mean bunch of us, but feminist educators, and I think that I can use the domestic violence clinic that we have here at the law school, and also I believe the one in Rochester, which we have representation by you here. We use gender violence, gender-motivated violence, gender-based violence. So we actually don't use these honor killings as much as we have used in the past, and as I heard here, that there is, of course, no honor in this sort of murders. Now, Afshan mentioned the rape in India, and for some of you who might have read the editorial that I wrote for Buffalo News regarding that particular crime, it took many, many years, and I can say perhaps centuries, of Indian young women being abused and tortured for that law to come about. And unfortunately, for the young woman who lost her life, and also for her family, but at least her blood made it possible, perhaps, and I'm knocking wood here, for other Pakistani and Indian women to walk the streets much safer. And I have to say that as crusaders of democracy in the United States, we have come far from where we were 200 years ago regarding treatment of rape victims in courtrooms. But still, we have some more ways to go. But we should be very proud of what we have done so far as a result of men and women alike. We need more men here. I think that there has been this notion that these seminars and this type of seminars are for women only. I am really thankful here to the Hill group and especially Imam Yahya who brought the group here, because we have to send out the message to our religious leaders, because women who are facing domestic violence, they go to religious leaders for help. So the role that religious community plays here is a vital role. And of course, invite your husbands, invite your friends, invite your male friends, male colleagues to come here and attend these seminars, because we need them to be on board with us. Do I have more time to answer questions or no? Okay, if we have more time, we can do more.
Can I ask questions?
Yes.
I agree with you about this, but I'm also wondering if you feel that the laws are adequately enforced, because I feel one of the things that hasn't been said yet is that we need to do a better job of training the police here and in Rochester.
I am thankful for that comment. I think that in this country, right, the first respondents are the most important people because they are the first who are going to hear about this type of perhaps violence is taking place. In the Shafi's case in Canada, the three girls, along with the first wife, who were killed at the hands of the second wife, the husband, and their eldest son, they complained number of times to teachers, to social workers at a school, and they said, triggers. They said, our father has told us he's going to kill us. So when somebody with that cultural background, and when I say that cultural background, I don't mean to degrade that. People from some backgrounds outside of United States, if a father says, I'm going to kill you, usually the father kills the child. So when first respondents, when social workers, when people like Debbie, when you hear that, it's alarming. I have heard from police force in Lackawanna that when they hear from a school principal that we have had a complaint by one of our students that she doesn't want to go home because her brother told her, when you come back, I'm going to kill you, you have to take that seriously. It is not as you know, we just take it lightly. Now, in countries that I did use as an example, when I said Jordan, this is what I mean. In countries overseas, countries of origins, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in Iraq, in many of Muslim and especially Arab nations, Persian Gulfs, and Dubai, Qatar, all those countries, they need to make sure the law is equal to the crime. And that is what is important in those countries. Here, thank God, in the United States of America, you kill, it doesn't matter why you killed. It's a first-degree murder. Your defense could be crime of honors, right? Crime of passion. But this type of crime does not fit under crime of passion. And that is why putting them in a category is important. Thank you.
Okay, my question was, are men victims of domestic violence? Sometimes. Sometimes they absolutely are. But the truth is, most of the time when men have been attacked by a woman, the woman is defending herself, and the woman is the one that ends up getting arrested. That's my experience. Are there women who are violent perpetrators? Absolutely. But let's be honest, if you met me in a dark alley and you're one of the big guys in this room, are you going to be too scared of me? Probably not. Right? So most of the time when we're being honest about it, women just do not have the physical strength that men do. And most often, women, when they are perpetrating some type of violence, it is an act of self-defense, in my experience working. Yes?
To address the early signs of violence, and Nadia said that's very important. And I want to take this opportunity to remind everyone of us about what's happening to our sisters and daughters and mothers. Now, as we speak, in Syria, already more than 3,000 women were raped, and the world is silent. Right. This is again a sign of our world failing to address violence against women where nobody is doing anything and nobody is addressing this issue.
Yeah.
Two questions. One was, in my presentation, I had made a comment that from the Quran, I had interpreted that immoral behavior of a woman, she bears the consequences of her own behavior, no matter what she does. So the question was, what are the consequences that Islam allows? I think I may have said I may have said it in a way that gave you a misinterpretation. When I mean consequences, I'll give you just a simple example. You know what the rules of driving are. You're driving down a street and it's 25 miles an hour. You're going at 50 miles an hour. You've made the choice to go fast. You know the rules, but you decided, I'll just go fast, nobody will catch me. The cop catches you. Now you're paying the consequences of that. So some higher authority is going to make you pay the consequences of the choices you took. Your heart knows what's right, what's wrong. I should not speed, but I will speed. I know what's right, I know what's wrong. The Quran says there's no compulsion in religion. However, the very next verse says, surely right has been distinguished from wrong. So then that's what I meant when I said consequences of your action. Okay? The second question was, why is it that always when someone commits a brutal crime, an act of terror, Islam as a religion is victimized, especially in the western part of the world? Unfortunately, it is because the Muslims are their own worst enemies. That's the sad part. When a Muslim does it, they proudly claim that they did it in the cause of Allah, which is not true. They say jihad-e-akbar, which is not true. That is not jihad. Jihad is jihad of yourself. Jihad, that word only means to struggle and to strive. We misinterpret, we as Muslims give you the wrong message, and then the media picks it up, and we don't read about it, we don't educate ourselves, and then that's how the negativism of Islam gets perpetuated. The other thing is that, for example, even honor killing, when it happens by a Muslim, he proudly says, I did it because Islam taught me to. He's trying to escape the crime, escape the punishment, and then puts it on the religion, which is not the case. Now, in the Western Hemisphere, what the Taliban practice is considered Islam. No one really looks at the true teachings of Islam, the holistic philosophy behind Islam, or the peaceful nature of Islam. And so I think people who are moderate Muslims, we need to understand the Quran in its entirety, in a holistic manner, and we need to stand up and maybe, as someone said, in workshops, or educate our students, educate our families, educate the community about what Islam really is, and hopefully the press will also take suit from that. Yes?
But when someone who commits a crime says, I do this in the name of Allah, do imams or do any community leaders from the Muslim community speak out and give press and say, this is not true? Yeah, I think it has to be.
We need to do that more often, yes.
Every single time it needs to be.
You're right. You're right. Yes. Thank you.
Should we give her one quick comment? Go for it.
I took enough pokes, I think. I'm staying at this and this time. See this? What I wanted to say, a couple of things. The gentleman had made a comment about why the term honor killing. It is dishonorable. I have agreed with that forever and ever, and I think, and that is why I was referring that it should always be labeled as gender-based violence. The problem that Nadia raised was if we don't put a clear understanding of that term being used by the perpetrators, we can't really handle it in a different way also. So there's a combination of things happening why we've had to use this term in order to bring it to the table, so then we can go into the grassroots and make the changes that need to be changed as gender-based violence, which is what it is specifically. Number two, you had made the comment about why don't the imams speak. When it happened in Buffalo, it really did raise a lot of hats, and I was so saddened by it. Took such a big thing. But it did. It's not that the imams weren't telling that the people, because I always oppose the imam in Rochester, and we have a very good understanding that he says, oh, this way, you know what, I'll guide what I can, and you go do what you do. And I respect that, and I respect his dealings. Now he's teaching at Nazareth College. And I've learned so much from the imams that, no, it is not acceptable, it is not doable. But you're right. They didn't speak out into the public media as much. And right after that incident, I saw Rochester doing that. I saw so many more imams speaking out loud and clear in their, at the end of the prayer or before the prayer starts, they do what they call a khutbah, a speech. And they were all talking about it. They did seminars on the domestic violence, what it is not acceptable to Islam. And when I brought that to one of the seminars that was happening, I got a lot of people, a couple of people who got very offended with me for not protecting Islam as much. But I saw that the imams were doing that, and they were making the steps. And I think if the media will be able to take that on and go to the imams, it would be better.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. We're so grateful to have you here, so grateful for these ideas. And if you would sign your name, and we're going to get together and send you emails or give you phone calls, and we are going to meet in July, and we are going to move forward, and we're going to be active, and we are going to be proactive, and this is not a day event. This is a life change.